The conference room aboard the Zarian flagship Eternal Dominance was designed to intimidate. The ceiling stretched 15 m high, covered in holographic displays showing thousands of conquered worlds. Each one bore the mark of the Dominion, a symbol that meant submission across 10,000 star systems. Admiral Kravik stood at the head of the massive table, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. His species, the Zarians, had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They were tall, nearly 3 m each, with gray-scaled skin and eyes that glowed a dim red. They were warriors, conquerors, and they had never known defeat. Across from Kravik sat 3 humans. They looked impossibly small in the vast chamber. The lead human was a woman named Maria Chen. She wore a simple blue suit with a small pin on her lapel showing Earth, a planet the Zarians had only discovered 6 months ago. Next to her sat 2 others, a man named James Rodriguez and another woman named Ko Tanaka. They looked calm. Too calm. Kravik did not like it. "You understand the offer we present," Kravik said. His voice was deep and carried the weight of absolute authority. "The Zetherian Dominion extends its protection to your species. You will provide tribute, resources, and soldiers when called upon. In return, we will not destroy your home world. This is generous. Most species fight us first. They lose, then they submit. We are saving you that pain." Maria Chun looked at her 2 companions. Then she did something Kravik had never seen in 300 years of delivering ultimatums to primitive species. She smiled. Not a small nervous smile, but a genuine warm smile that reached her eyes. Then James Rodriguez made a sound, a short burst of air from his mouth. A laugh. Hiko Tanaka covered her mouth with her hand, but her shoulders shook. Kravik's red eyes narrowed. "You find something amusing about your civilization's destruction?" No, Maria said, composing herself but still smiling. "I'm sorry, Admiral. It's just that you sound exactly like the Mongols or the Romans or the British Empire or about a dozen other groups from our history who said the same thing." She folded her hands on the table. "They were all very confident too." "Those are names of your conquered peoples?" Kravik asked. "They submitted to stronger powers, as is natural." "As you will." "Actually," James said, leaning back in his chair, "they were the conquerors, or at least they tried to be. The Mongols ruled half of Asia. The Romans controlled the Mediterranean for centuries. The British claimed the sun never set on their empire." He paused. "They're all gone now. History books and archaeological sites." Kravik slammed one of his massive fists on the table. The metal dented. "You compare our eternal dominion to your primitive tribes? We have ruled the galaxy since before your species learned to use fire. We have weapons that crack planets, fleets that blot out stars." "We know," Maria said gently. "We've been watching you for about 40 years now. Your sensor technology is pretty good, but it's not perfect. We've had stealth probes in your territory since 2043. We know how many ships you have, what your weapons can do, and how you organize your command structure." She pulled out a small tablet. "We also know that you've been having supply problems in the outer rim sectors. The species you conquered there keep sabotaging your logistics chains. Must be frustrating." The room fell silent. One of the officers, Vextil, stepped forward. "Admiral, they are lying. Our security is absolute. No primitive species could infiltrate our territory." "Could not," Ko corrected. "Past tense. We did multiple times. We also hacked your communications network about 6 months ago. Did you ever wonder why your encrypted military channels kept playing that song? The one that goes, 'Never going to give you up, never going to let you down'? That was us. We call it getting rickrolled. It's a joke." Kravik felt something he had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. "You have 1 Earth week," he said slowly. 7 of your days. Submit or we will demonstrate why none resist the Dominion." Maria Chun stood up. Her 2 companions followed. "Admiral Kravik, we appreciate you coming all this way. We really do, but humanity has to decline your offer. We've got prior commitments. Democracy, freedom, self-determination, those kinds of things, they're important to us. Also, we're just not interested in joining your empire." She extended her hand. Kravik stared at it but did not take it. You are fools. In 7 days your world burns. We'll be ready, Maria said. One more thing, she added. This conversation is being broadcast live to every country on Earth. About 8 billion people are watching right now. They all just heard you threaten to burn our world. She smiled again. Humans are funny creatures, Admiral. We're at our most dangerous when someone threatens our home. The 3 humans turned and left. Kravik's second officer approached. Your orders. Begin preparations. We will make an example of these humans. The other vassal species are watching. If we show weakness, we invite rebellion. Then he added, increase intelligence gathering. I want to know everything about Earth's military capabilities. Everything. On Earth, Maria Chun materialized in the transport hub beneath Geneva. Waiting for her was General Sarah Mitchell, head of the United Earth Defense Force. How did it go? Mitchell asked. Exactly as we predicted, Maria said. He gave us 1 week. He's arrogant, overconfident, and completely convinced we're primitive. Perfect. She walked toward the elevator with Mitchell beside her. Is everything in position? The fleets are ready, Mitchell confirmed. Defense platforms are online. Ground-based railguns are charged. Every major city has bunkers ready for civilians. And the moon batteries are armed. We've been preparing for this for 40 years, she said grimly. Ever since we detected their empire. If they come, they're in for a surprise. They'll come, James said. They always do. They can't imagine losing because they never have. Above Earth in high orbit, thousands of satellites adjusted their positions. They looked like commercial communications equipment or scientific instruments. They were not. Each one was a weapons platform, carefully disguised and patiently waiting. On the moon, massive electromagnetic launchers sat in craters, their barrels pointed at the sky. In the asteroid belt, mining stations that were not quite mining stations locked onto predetermined coordinates. Mars colony defense systems powered up after decades of hidden preparation. In command centers across Earth, soldiers reviewed their orders. Many were nervous. Some were scared. But most shared a common trait humanity had carried since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. They were stubborn. Tell a human something is impossible, and they will try anyway. Tell them to surrender, and they will fight twice as hard. Admiral Kravik did not understand this yet. He would learn. Back on the Eternal Dominance, Kravik reviewed the intelligence reports on Earth. The planet had approximately 8 billion inhabitants. Their technology was primitive by Dominion standards. They had barely left their own star system. Their largest weapons were fusion bombs that could destroy cities. Against planet crackers that could shatter entire worlds, such weapons were toys. They have no chance, Vextel said, reading the same reports. Why did they refuse? Why did they laugh? Madness, Kravik decided, or ignorance? Perhaps both. He magnified the image of Earth on the central display. It was a beautiful world covered in blues, greens, and whites. Pity we must burn it. But the Dominion demands obedience. We will destroy their military, their cities, their hope. Then we will demand submission again. They will accept. And if they do not? Vextel asked. Kravik's red eyes glowed brighter. Then we will show them why extinct species do not refuse the Dominion twice. The 7 days passed slowly. On Earth, families said goodbyes. Soldiers took their positions. Scientists made final adjustments to weapon systems. In living rooms, offices, and schools across the planet, humans watched the news with a mixture of fear and determination. On the 6th day, a young reporter interviewed an old woman in New York City. Are you afraid? The Zarian fleet arrives tomorrow, the reporter asked. The woman, who had lived through 3 wars and 2 pandemics, smiled. Honey, I'm 103 years old. I've been afraid before. It didn't help then, and it won't help now. Those aliens think they can scare us into submission. She laughed, a dry, crackling sound. We're humans. We're too stubborn to know when we're beaten. My grandmother told me stories about World War II. People said the Nazis couldn't be stopped. They were wrong. Someone always thinks they're invincible. They never are. The interview went viral across Earth. People shared it, commented on it, and found courage in it. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and climate disasters. They would survive this too, or they would die trying. Either way, they would not kneel. On the seventh day, Admiral Kravik's fleet entered the Sol system. 300 warships, each one larger than anything humans had built. Their weapons could glass continents. Their shields could withstand nuclear weapons. They moved through space like a swarm of metal predators, confident and unstoppable. Kravik opened communications with Earth. His face appeared on every screen, every device capable of receiving a signal. "Humans of Earth," he said, "this is your final chance. Submit or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to signal your surrender." In the United Earth Defense Force Command Center, General Mitchell looked at her staff. "Well," she said, "I guess we're doing this. All stations, prepare to engage. Let's show these bastards why you don't threaten humanity's home world." "Should we respond to Kravik's message?" someone asked. Maria Chun, appointed as diplomatic liaison during the crisis, smiled. "Already done. I sent it 5 minutes ago." On the Eternal Dominance, a communication alert chimed. Kravik opened it, expecting Earth's formal surrender. Instead, he saw a simple text message. "Come and take it." Below it were 3 symbols: a smiley face, a middle finger, and an image of Earth with the caption, "Try me." Kravik stared at the message. Then he roared in rage. "All ships, attack. Burn that planet to ash." The war for Earth had begun. The Zarian fleet moved toward Earth like a metal storm. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominance, Kravik watched the planet grow larger on his display. He felt satisfaction. This would be quick, brutal, a lesson to every species in the galaxy. "Admiral, we are detecting unusual readings," Vextel reported. "Thousands of objects in orbit around Earth. They appear to be satellites. Ignore them. Target the major population centers. Prepare planet cracker missiles." What Kravik did not know was that those satellites were already targeting his fleet. In high orbit, thousands of weapons platforms came alive. Their disguises fell away, revealing railguns, missile pods, and laser batteries. On the moon, electromagnetic launchers the size of skyscrapers hummed with power. In the asteroid belt, mining stations rotated to reveal hidden weapons. General Mitchell stood deep beneath Geneva. Around her, officers monitored the approaching fleet. "Range?" she asked. "Optimal firing range in 30 seconds. They are targeting major cities," a tactical officer reported. "They are preparing to fire." "Let them get closer," Mitchell said calmly. "We want them fully committed." She turned to communications. "Put me on all channels." Her voice echoed across every human military unit and every Zarian ship. "All defense forces, this is General Mitchell. You know your duty. You are defending your home, your families, your species. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth. Fire at will." Then music erupted across every channel, loud, defiant, overwhelming. "What is this noise?" Kravik demanded. "Block their transmissions." "We cannot, Admiral. They have overridden all frequencies." The satellites fired first. Thousands of railgun rounds tore through space at relativistic speeds. Shields that could withstand nuclear weapons flickered and failed. 3 Zarian cruisers disintegrated instantly. "Kinetic weapons," Vextel said, voice shaking. "Our shields were not designed for this velocity." "Retreat," someone urged. "No," Kravik roared. "Destroy those satellites." Energy beams erupted from the fleet, but Earth's defenses were too numerous, too fast, too coordinated. And then the moon fired. Guided kinetic kill vehicles struck the Zarian battleships. The war had fully begun. The impacts were catastrophic. Each projectile hit with the force of a tactical nuclear weapon, but there was no radiation, no electromagnetic pulse, just pure devastating kinetic energy. "We have lost the Dreadnought's fist of dominion and eternal wrath," someone reported. "The Conqueror's pride is venting atmosphere." "Admiral, our formation is breaking." Kravik could not believe what he was seeing. Primitive humans, barely capable of spaceflight, were destroying his fleet. "Send in the fighters," he ordered. "Overwhelm their defenses with numbers." From the Zarian carriers came thousands of single-pilot fighters. They swarmed toward Earth like angry insects. The human defenders met them with fighters of their own. The human craft were smaller, lighter, and faster. They moved in ways that should have killed their pilots, making turns and accelerations that should have crushed any organic being inside. What the Zarians did not know was that human pilots were augmented. Genetic modifications, cybernetic enhancements, and drug cocktails allowed them to survive forces that would liquefy normal humans. A human pilot could pull 15 gravities and keep fighting. Their reaction times were enhanced. Their vision was directly linked to their ship's targeting systems. They were part machine, part human, and entirely deadly. The dogfights were vicious. Zarian fighters exploded by the dozens. Human fighters twisted and rolled, firing missiles and cannon rounds with precision. One human pilot, called Sign Reaper, destroyed 9 enemy fighters in 3 minutes. Another, called Sign Ghost, flew through the debris of a destroyed Zarian cruiser and emerged on the other side, guns blazing, taking out 4 more enemies using the wreckage as cover. "This is Ghost to all units," the pilot said over human channels. "These guys fly like they're in a parade formation. Stick and move, people. Make them chase you into the satellite kill zones." It was a massacre. Human fighters led Zarian pursuers into preset ambush zones where satellites waited. The enemy flew straight into walls of railgun fire. Hundreds died. The survivors broke off, trying to retreat to their carriers. Many did not make it. On the Eternal Dominance, Kravik watched his fleet fall apart. "Damage report," he demanded. 83 ships destroyed," Vextil said quietly. 47 heavily damaged. "We have lost 60% of our fighter complement, Admiral. We must withdraw now." "Not yet." Kravik smashed his fist on the command console. "Deploy the planet crackers. If we cannot conquer this world, we will destroy it." 6 massive missiles launched from the remaining battleships. Each carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, triggering volcanic eruptions and earthquakes that would kill billions. They accelerated toward Earth. "Planet crackers detected," an officer shouted. 6 missiles inbound. "Impact in 90 seconds. Activate the Aegis system," Mitchell ordered. Around Earth, a network of satellites that had remained dormant suddenly powered up. They formed a defensive grid, each projecting an energy field. The fields overlapped, creating a shimmering barrier around the planet. The missiles struck. Explosions bloomed in orbit, each one bright enough to be seen from the ground. The shield flickered, weakened, but held. "Shield holding," an officer reported. "Power at 40%. Mitchell allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Now let's finish this. Launch the javelins." From hidden silos across Earth, the Moon, and Mars colony, new weapons launched. The javelins were unmanned spacecraft packed with explosives and driven by powerful engines, but they were not suicide ships. They were decoys. They broadcast false signatures, making them appear as high-value human command ships. The Zarian fleet, desperate to salvage something, took the bait. Dozens of ships broke formation to intercept. The javelins led them away from Earth. Then the real attack came. Human destroyers and cruisers emerged from the shadow of the Moon and struck the disorganized Zarian fleet from behind. Missiles and railgun fire tore into vulnerable hulls. More ships died. "Full retreat," Kravik finally ordered. His pride shattered. "All ships withdraw from Sol system immediately." The surviving Zarian vessels turned and fled. Of the 300 ships that entered the system, only 180 escaped. 120 were destroyed or crippled. It was the worst defeat the Dominion had suffered in centuries. As the fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, the music on all channels stopped. A new message was broadcast from Earth. Ambassador Maria Chen's voice, calm, almost friendly. "Admiral Kravik, we told you we weren't interested. We told you to leave us alone. You didn't listen. This is what happens when you threaten humanity's home. We were ready for you. We've been ready for 40 years. Every tactic you used, we predicted. Every weapon you deployed, we had a counter. You came here thinking we were primitive. You were wrong. Tell your Galactic Council that Earth is off-limits. Tell them what happened here. Humanity does not kneel. Pause. Oh, and about the music during the battle, we call that psychological warfare. Did it work? On the limping eternal dominance, Kravik sat in silence, staring at the empty space where Earth had been. He had underestimated them badly. These humans were not primitive. They were prepared, cunning, and ruthless when defending their world. Admiral, Vextil said quietly, what do we tell the Galactic Council? Kravik closed his eyes. The truth, he said, that we encountered a species unlike any we have ever faced. One that prepares for war while others assume submission. He opened his eyes. And that if we want to defeat them, we will need far more than what we brought today. What Kravik did not yet know was that Earth's counterattack was already beginning. Human ships were already moving into Dominion space. The war had just started, and humanity had no intention of waiting for the enemy to regroup and return. They were going to take the fight to the Dominion because that was what humans did. You hit them, they hit back harder. You threaten their home, they come for yours. The message was clear across the galaxy as news of the battle spread. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had arrived with a declaration written in the wreckage of an empire's fleet. Do not threaten Earth. Do not assume humans will submit. And whatever you do, do not underestimate what humans will do to protect what they love. The Zarian Dominion had learned that lesson. Soon, the rest of the galaxy would too. The Galactic Council met in emergency session 3 days after the Battle of Sol. The council chamber on Zetheria Prime was a massive structure built to showcase Dominion power. Representatives from 100 vassal species sat in tiered seating, all watching as Admiral Kravik stood before the Council of Five, the ruling body of the Dominion. Explain, commanded High Counselor Thexer. He was ancient even by Zarian standards, over 500 years old. His scales were nearly black with age, and his red eyes burned with barely contained fury. Explain how a primitive species destroyed 40% of our fleet. Kravik stood straight despite his injuries. The humans were prepared, High Counselor. They had been observing us for decades. They knew our tactics, our weapons, our formations. They used kinetic weapons at relativistic speeds, which our shields were not designed to counter. They used psychological warfare, broadcasting noise during battle to disrupt our communications and confuse our forces. Their pilots are genetically modified to withstand extreme forces. Their ships are smaller but faster and more maneuverable than ours. Excuses, Thexer spat. You had 300 ships. You should have been able to glass their planet before they could mount a defense. They had orbital weapons platforms disguised as satellites, Kravik continued. Thousands of them. They had mass drivers on their moon. They had a planetary shield we did not know existed. High Counselor, these humans are not primitive. They are dangerous. Thexer leaned forward. Then we will send more ships. 3,000. 30,000 if necessary. We will crush them. With respect, High Counselor, said a voice from the council seating, a Felixian representative. Might it be wiser to negotiate? If the humans are as capable as Admiral Kravik suggests, perhaps peace would serve the Dominion better than continued war. Peace. Thexer's voice was cold. The Dominion does not negotiate with species that refuse submission. We conquer or we destroy. There is no third option. He turned back to Kravik. You have one chance to redeem yourself. Take command of the border fleets. Fortify our territory. They may have won one battle, but they cannot challenge our entire empire. Kravik saluted and left the chamber. He wanted to warn them. He wanted to tell them humans would not wait. But he knew the council would not listen. So he prepared the border defenses and hoped he was wrong. He was not wrong. 2 days later, chaos erupted across 12 Dominion border worlds simultaneously. Human ships appeared out of faster-than-light travel in perfect coordination. But these were not defensive platforms. These were assault ships, On Kelvor 3, a mining colony with millions of Dominion citizens and enslaved workers, human ships arrived in orbit. The local defense fleet moved to intercept. Then the humans broadcast a message. It was not a threat. It was a song. The same heavy metal music from the Battle of Seoul. Confusion spread through Zarian command channels. Then the human ships opened fire. They moved like nothing the Zarian fleet had ever encountered, dodging, weaving, striking with impossible precision. One human destroyer, painted bright yellow with a giant smiley face on its hull, flew straight through a formation of cruisers while firing in all directions. On its side were the words, "Have a nice day." What kind of military paints smiley faces on warships? A Kelvor commander shouted. He never received an answer. A missile struck his ship but did not explode. Instead, it pierced the hull and activated a broadcast system. A voice filled the ship in perfect Zarian. "Attention Dominion forces. This is Captain Sarah Johnson of the UES Freedom's Dawn. We are not here to kill you unless you make us. We are here to free the people you have enslaved. Abandon your ships. You have 5 minutes. You will be treated as prisoners of war according to the Geneva Conventions. Your choice. Fight and die, or surrender and live." Silence. Then collapse. Within minutes, the defense fleet surrendered. Escape pods were recovered by human ships exactly as promised. Then humanity did something unexpected. They broadcast a message across the planet. Ambassador Maria Chun appeared on every screen. "People of Kelvor 3, humanity offers you a choice. The Dominion has ruled you through fear. We are here to offer freedom." Then came the data. Evidence of exploitation, slavery, corruption, orders for mass suppression. The truth spread across the planet. And the planet responded. Rebellion erupted. Within 12 hours, Kelvor 3 was free. The Dominion flag was burned. Human soldiers helped distribute food and aid, their armor painted with flowers and peace symbols. "Why flowers?" a local asked. "Psychological warfare," a human soldier replied. "They expect fear. We give them confusion. Also, my grandma likes roses." This pattern repeated across all 12 worlds. Human fleets struck, disabled defenses, and then helped populations overthrow Dominion rule. They also waged psychological warfare on an unprecedented scale. Comedy broadcasts flooded enemy channels. Tactical systems were hacked and replaced with dancing cats. Supply depots delivered useless items. Ammo replaced with toilet paper. Fuel replaced with cooking oil. One Dominion dreadnought suffered a system-wide sabotage that reversed its waste systems for 6 hours. The ship became uninhabitable. The crew evacuated. The humans returned it later with a note. "Cleaned your ship. You're welcome. Try not to be so full of it next time." Signed Plumber UES Flush. Across the galaxy, vassal species began to laugh. Not at humanity's destruction, but at the Dominion's humiliation. And the balance of power began to shift. The Dominion tried to suppress the footage, but it kept reappearing across networks throughout the Empire. Humanity had not just hacked their computers, they had hacked their entire information infrastructure. But the psychological warfare went deeper. Human intelligence operatives embedded in Dominion territory for years began revealing themselves. They uploaded documents across public networks. Evidence of war crimes, corruption, embezzlement, and systemic exploitation. Financial records showed Dominion elites living in luxury while vassal species starved. Internal communications revealed officials discussing populations as resources and cattle. One of the most damaging leaks came from inside the Galactic Council itself. Hidden recordings from years of meetings surfaced, showing council members laughing about starvation, planning exterminations, and maintaining control through fear. The footage spread faster than the Dominion could suppress it. Across the galaxy, vassal species saw the truth. Their rulers were not protectors. They were parasites. And now those parasites were being challenged by a species that treated war as both deadly serious and absurdly unpredictable. Captain Marcus Chun, no relation to Ambassador Maria Chun, commanded the destroyer Defiant Spirit. His ship had fought in 4 border engagements. Its hull was covered in graffiti and jokes directed at the Dominion. One side read, "Roses are red, violets are blue. The Dominion is scared, and you should be too." The other showed Admiral Kravik with the caption, "I went to Earth and all I got was this lousy defeat." "Captain," his communications officer said, "we are receiving multiple surrender requests from Dominion forces in the Theta sector. They are asking for terms." "Tell them the same thing we tell everyone," Marcus replied. "Surrender and you'll be treated well. Keep fighting and we make your lives difficult. Oh, and tell them we're still accepting song requests for our combat playlist." It was true. Some Dominion soldiers had begun requesting Earth music after surrendering. Human crews even created mixtapes for prisoners of war. It was bizarre. It was effective. And it was very human. In the Dominion capital, High Counselor Thexer received continuous reports. 12 worlds in rebellion, 6 more destabilizing. Fleets being defeated not by overwhelming force, but by confusion, hacking, and psychological disruption. And worst of all, the leaks. Every secret the Dominion had buried was now exposed. "How?" he demanded. "How are they everywhere?" No one had an answer. The truth was simple. While the Dominion assumed humanity was primitive, humanity had spent 40 years studying them, infiltrating their systems and preparing. And now that preparation was paying off. Ambassador Maria Chun appeared again across Dominion networks. "People of the galaxy," she said, "humanity does not seek to conquer you. We seek to free you. The Dominion claims order. It delivers oppression. We offer a choice. A galaxy of equals or an empire of fear." The message ended with a historical quote. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all sentient beings are created equal." It was not just a statement. It was a declaration of ideological war against tyranny itself. And tyranny, for all its power, was beginning to crack. The Galactic Council chamber was designed for control. Today it failed. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded negotiation with humanity. Others demanded total war. A few even suggested surrender. High Counselor Thexer stood at the center of the chaos. "Silence!" His voice echoed through the chamber. It did not fully stop the shouting. He slammed his fists onto the table. "I said silence." Gradually, the room quieted. "The Dominion does not negotiate with rebels," Thexer said coldly. "These humans will be crushed. Admiral Kravik has failed and will be executed. Grand Admiral Vexeloth will lead the final campaign." From the chamber's edge, a Felixian representative stood. Her name was Tizera. "With respect," she said, "Kravik did not fail. He encountered a species that prepared for war while we grew complacent. Executing him changes nothing." Murmurs spread through the chamber. "You dare speak against the Dominion?" Thexer said. "I speak truth," she replied. 17 worlds are in rebellion. 6 more are neutral. Some vassals are joining the humans. The Dominion is not stable anymore. Guards moved toward her. "Remove her," Thexer ordered. "Let her fate remind you of the cost of defiance." As she was taken away, silence fell over the chamber again. But it was different now. Uncertain. Fragile. The Dominion had not broken yet. But for the first time in its history, it was afraid of what came next. Vexeloth was there, recently promoted despite his humiliation. Also present were General Crix, head of Dominion Ground Forces, and Admiral Jever, commander of the Home Fleet. They were the Dominion's finest military minds, and they all looked worried. "The situation is worse than we have admitted publicly," Thexer said. 23 worlds are now in rebellion. Human ships are appearing across our territory. Our communication networks are compromised. Our intelligence services report that humans have infiltrated every level of our government and military. Some may be in this room. The commanders exchanged uneasy glances. "How is that possible?" Vexeloth asked. "Humans look nothing like us. They are smaller, weaker, with those strange hair follicles and forward-facing eyes. How could they infiltrate us?" "Disguises," Jever suggested. "Advanced holographic technology. Or perhaps they recruited vassal species. It does not matter how, Vexloth snapped. What matters is that we are fighting an enemy we do not understand. They mock us. They humiliate us. They turn our own people against us. We need a solution, something that will break human morale and show the vassal species that rebellion is futile. We could deploy planet crackers on rebellious worlds, Crick said. Destroy a few major population centers. Make an example. The humans claim to care about innocent life. Let them watch billions die. That would only drive more species into rebellion, Vexloth countered. If we start cracking planets, we prove everything the humans have said about us. We become monsters in the eyes of the galaxy. We already are monsters, a voice said from the chamber entrance. Everyone turned. A human woman stood there in a simple black suit, holding a small device. Hello, High Counselor, she said pleasantly. My name is Agent Sarah Kim, Earth Intelligence Services. I've been on Zetheria Prime for 3 years. I worked as your cultural minister's assistant. Nice man. Terrible at noticing file theft. Guards rushed her. She pressed a button. Every screen in the chamber activated. Recordings appeared. Secret council meetings, extermination discussions, financial corruption, slave trade coordination, and mass exploitation orders. I have already uploaded everything to public networks, she said calmly as guards grabbed her. By now, every citizen in the Dominion knows the truth. You cannot hide it anymore. Thexer's eyes burned with fury. Kill her slowly. Kim smiled. You can kill me. That's fine. But it won't matter. There are 50 other agents like me. All of it is already exposed. The people know what you are, and you cannot put that knowledge back. We will find them all, Thexer growled. Good luck, she said as she was dragged away. Oh, and High Counselor, your morning drink? I've been preparing it for 2 years. A pause. It's not poison, just a tracking compound. We've known your exact location the entire time. She was gone, but the message remained. The Dominion had been fully exposed. Later that day, public broadcasts across Dominion space replayed the leaked recordings. Citizens saw their leaders discussing entire species as livestock. Vassal worlds saw proof of planned genocides. Even loyal military personnel were shaken. Rebellion spread not just on border worlds but in core systems. Soldiers refused orders. Some deserted. Others switched sides entirely. The Dominion military began to fracture. In a cell awaiting execution, Admiral Kravik received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Maria Chin. The Dominion had allowed the meeting in hopes of gathering intelligence. Admiral, she said calmly, sitting across from him, I am sorry about your sentence. You were a competent commander. You followed orders. You do not deserve to die for that. I do not want your pity, Kravik replied weakly. It is not pity, she said. It is respect. You were given an impossible task, conquering a species that spent 40 years preparing specifically for your empire. We studied you. We infiltrated you. We prepared for this war. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because I want you to understand something, Chen said. Humanity does not want to destroy the Zarian people. We want to destroy the Dominion, the system, the oppression, the empire. The Zarian people deserve better than tyrants like Thexer. Kravik narrowed his eyes. You expect me to betray my people? I think you want to save them, she replied. The Dominion is falling. Thexer is preparing to kill billions with planet crackers. You know this is wrong. Silence. You could stop it, she said. After a long pause, Kravik asked quietly, And if I do, what happens to me? I cannot promise you survival, Chun said honestly. But you may die knowing you did the right thing. 3 days later, a message appeared across Dominion military channels. Admiral Kravik's voice. I am sentenced to die for my failure at Earth. But before I die, I must speak. The humans defeated us because they were more prepared and more united than we were. But they did not need to expose our crimes. They did so because they believe in truth. We brought order, but also oppression, suffering, fear. I urge all military personnel to ask themselves, who are you serving? The Dominion's corrupt leadership, or something better? Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Hours later, Admiral Kravik was executed by firing squad, but his message had spread. Across the Dominion military, officers and soldiers began to question their orders. Some openly defied commands to attack civilian populations. Others contacted human forces to negotiate local truces. A few entire fleets declared neutrality and withdrew to remote systems to wait out the conflict. The Dominion was eating itself from the inside. High Counselor Thexer, watching his empire crumble around him, made a desperate decision. He would deploy every weapon the Dominion possessed, planet crackers, biological weapons, and weapons banned by galactic conventions. He would burn entire worlds if necessary. If the Dominion was going to fall, it would take half the galaxy with it. He called his remaining loyal commanders. "Prepare the final option," he ordered. "We will show these humans and their rebel allies what true power means. We will show them what happens when they challenge the Dominion." But what Thexer did not know was that his communications were being monitored. Every order he gave was being recorded and transmitted to human intelligence, and humanity was preparing its response. The game was not over. The final moves were about to be played, and when the dust settled, the galaxy would be forever changed. High Counselor Thexer stood before the massive display in his war room. The holographic map showed the Dominion's territory in red, with areas of rebellion marked in yellow and human-controlled zones in blue. There was far too much yellow and blue. The red was shrinking day by day. His empire, built over 3,000 years, was collapsing in a matter of months. "Status of the final option," he demanded. Grand Admiral Vexeloth consulted his datapad. 20 planet cracker missiles are armed and ready. 10 biological weapon payloads are prepared. We have selected target worlds for maximum psychological impact, heavily populated worlds in the core of rebellious sectors. When they see entire planets die, the rebels will surrender or face the same fate. "No," said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. Standing there was Admiral Jevker, commander of the home fleet. Behind him stood dozens of officers and soldiers, all armed. "I cannot allow this, High Counselor. Using weapons of mass destruction on civilian populations is not warfare. It is genocide. I will not be part of it." Thexer's eyes blazed. "You dare commit mutiny in the midst of war?" "I dare prevent the slaughter of billions of innocent people," Jevker replied. "High Counselor, I have served the Dominion my entire life. I believed we brought order to chaos. But Admiral Kravik was right. We brought oppression, and now rather than accept defeat with honor, you want to commit atrocities that will make us monsters in the eyes of history. I cannot follow you down that path. Then you will die with the traitors." Thexer reached for his weapon, but Jevker was faster. A stun blast hit the High Counselor, and he collapsed. The other officers loyal to Thexer reached for their weapons, but Jevker's forces outnumbered them. Within minutes, the room was secured. "Send a message to the human fleet," Jevker ordered. "Tell them the Dominion Council is under arrest. Tell them we are prepared to negotiate a surrender." In space above Zetheria Prime, the human fleet waited. They had arrived 3 days ago, not with weapons firing, but with a simple message: evacuate all civilian populations from the planet. "We are coming for your government, not your people. You have 72 hours. True to their word, human ships had not fired a single shot at the planet. They had simply waited while billions of Zarian civilians evacuated to orbital stations and transport ships. The Dominion had expected an attack, had prepared defenses, and had positioned their remaining fleet to protect the capital. But the attack never came. The humans just waited. Now, with the message from Jevker received, Ambassador Maria Chun stood on the bridge of the UES Unity, the flagship of humanity's expeditionary force. It was not the largest ship or the most heavily armed, but it was the most important because it represented humanity's goal. Not conquest, but unity. "Admiral Jevker is requesting permission to come aboard," the communications officer reported. "He says he is prepared to discuss terms of surrender." "Grant it," Chin said, "and make sure he is treated with respect. He just saved billions of lives." That deserves recognition. An hour later, Jeffker stood in the conference room of the Unity. Across from him sat Ambassador Chun, General Mitchell, and several human military officers. The Zarian admiral looked exhausted. He was a warrior who had just committed the ultimate act of treason by his culture's standards. But he stood straight, dignified despite his circumstances. "Ambassador Chun," he began, "I am prepared to offer the unconditional surrender of Dominion forces. High Counselor Thexer and the Council of Five are under arrest. They will be turned over to you for trial. In return, I ask only that you show mercy to the Zarian people. We are not all monsters, despite what our government has done." "We never thought you were all monsters," Chun said gently. "If we did, we would not have spent 40 years trying to understand your culture, your people, your hopes, and your fears. We studied you because we wanted to find a way to defeat your government without destroying your civilization. Sit down, please. Let's discuss how we move forward." Jeffker sat, somewhat surprised by the human tone. In Dominion culture, surrender meant humiliation, but Chun spoke as if they were colleagues solving a problem together. "The terms are simple," Chun continued. "All vassal species will be granted immediate independence. All Dominion military forces will disarm. High Counselor Thexer and any other leaders responsible for war crimes will stand trial before a galactic tribunal. The Zarian people will not be punished for the crimes of their leaders. And once these terms are met, we will offer something you might find surprising. We will invite the Zarian people to join the Galactic Cooperative as equal members." Jeffker stared at her. "Equal members? After everything we have done?" "Yes," Mitchell said. "Because the Zarian people are not responsible for the actions of tyrants. You were born into this system. You were taught it was right. But you are capable of change. Admiral Kravik proved that. You proved it today by stopping Thexer from committing genocide. That shows us that Zarians can be better than their government was." "What is this Galactic Cooperative?" Jeffker asked. "A voluntary alliance of free species," Chen explained. "No emperors, no vassals, just partners working together for mutual benefit. Every species has equal representation. Decisions are made democratically. And yes, we know it will be messy, complicated, and sometimes frustrating. Democracy usually is. But it is better than tyranny." Over the next 3 weeks, the Dominion formally surrendered. Fleets were disarmed. Weapons of mass destruction were dismantled under human supervision. Vassal species celebrated their freedom. And on Zarya Prime, the trials began. The courtroom was located in the former Galactic Council chamber. The room had been redesigned. The tiered seating where vassal representatives had once been forced to watch Dominion pronouncements was now filled with judges and representatives from dozens of species. At the center, where the Council of Five had once sat in positions of power, were simple chairs for the accused. High Counselor Thexer sat in one of those chairs, his hands bound. Beside him sat the other 4 council members and various military commanders accused of war crimes. The head judge was a Felixian named Koresh, whose family had been killed by Dominion forces years ago. Many had questioned whether he could be impartial, but he had insisted he could separate personal pain from judicial duty. The trial lasted 4 months. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. The accused were given lawyers and allowed to present defenses. It was not the quick, brutal justice the Dominion had practiced. It was slow, careful, and fair. Even Thexer, who had expected to be executed immediately, was surprised by the thoroughness of the process. In the end, the verdicts came. Thexer was found guilty of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The other council members received similar sentences. Some military commanders were found guilty and imprisoned. Others were acquitted when evidence showed they had followed orders without knowledge of their illegality. After the sentencing, Ambassador Chun visited Thexer in his cell. The former High Counselor looked old and broken. His scales had lost their luster. His eyes no longer burned with authority. He was just a very old Zarian who had lost everything. "Why?" he asked Chin. "Why did you not execute me? Your species could have taken revenge. No one would have blamed you, because killing you would not undo the harm you caused," Chun replied. "And because we want to show the galaxy that justice is not the same as vengeance. You will spend the rest of your life in prison thinking about what you did. Maybe you will never understand why you were wrong. Maybe you will die angry and unrepentant. But future generations will look at your trial and see that even the worst criminals deserve due process. That is the kind of galaxy we want to build." "Your species is strange," Thexer said. "You fight with jokes and music. You show mercy to enemies. You offer equality to those you have defeated. I do not understand you." "That is because you were taught to see the universe in terms of power and submission," Chun said. "Strong versus weak, conqueror versus conquered. But humans learned something over our long, bloody history. We learned that strength without compassion is just cruelty. We learned that the strongest societies are not the ones ruled by force, but the ones built on cooperation and mutual respect. We learned that when you meet someone different, your first instinct should not be to dominate them, but to understand them." She stood to leave, then paused. "You know the funny thing, High Counselor? If you had approached Earth 40 years ago and asked to trade, to share knowledge, to be friends, we would have said yes. We would have been thrilled. We were looking for allies out here, not enemies. But you assumed we would be weak and easy to control. That assumption cost you everything." Chun left the cell. Thexer sat alone, contemplating her words. He would have decades to think about them. 2 years after the Dominion surrender, the first Galactic Cooperative Assembly met on a neutral station. Representatives from 83 species gathered to discuss cooperation, trade, defense, and the future. The station itself was a joint construction built by humans working alongside Zarians, Felixians, and dozens of other species. In the assembly hall, Ambassador Chen gave the opening address. "Today we begin something new. Not an empire, not a dominion, but a cooperative of free peoples. We will face challenges. We will have disagreements. Some days we will wonder if this whole democratic process is worth the frustration. But it is worth it because every species here has a voice. Every person matters. And together we are building a galaxy where no one kneels and everyone stands as equals." The applause was deafening, not because everyone agreed on everything, but because they agreed on the most important thing. They were free and they would stay that way. On a rebuilt border world called Kelver 3, a school opened. Human children and Zarian children sat in the same classroom. The teacher was a Felixian named Tassera's granddaughter, carrying on her grandmother's legacy of speaking truth. She taught history, including the uncomfortable history of the Dominion. But she also taught hope, how enemies became friends, how broken societies could heal. At a training facility on Mars, human Marines trained alongside former Dominion soldiers. The training was tough, professional, and occasionally interrupted by humans teaching their Zarian counterparts about Earth music, humor, and the art of psychological warfare. "So you actually paint flowers on your armor?" a young Zarian soldier asked. "Absolutely," replied a human sergeant whose armor was covered in painted sunflowers. "In combat, your enemy expects you to look a certain way. Scary, aggressive, threatening. When you show up looking cheerful and friendly while simultaneously being extremely lethal, it creates cognitive dissonance. They hesitate, and in combat, hesitation kills. Also, my mom likes sunflowers, and it makes me smile. Never underestimate the tactical advantage of being in a good mood." The Zarian soldier considered this. It was so different from everything he had been taught. Dominion training emphasized intimidation and displays of strength. But maybe there was strength in unexpected kindness, in humor during darkness, in refusing to let your enemies define how you fought. In a small apartment on Earth, an old woman watched news coverage of the Galactic Cooperative Assembly. She was the same woman who had been interviewed during the Zetheria invasion. Now 105 years old, she smiled at the screen. "I told you," she said to no one in particular. "We are too stubborn to stay beaten. Always have been." And in a museum on Zetheria Prime, a new exhibit opened, The Fall of the Dominion and the Rise of Cooperation. It showed the full history, including the Dominion's crimes. It did not shy away from the terrible things the Zarian government had done. But it also showed the resistance. Zarians like Jever who chose conscience over orders, Admiral Kravik who learned and grew even in defeat, and ordinary citizens who, when given the chance, chose peace over empire. The final display in the museum was a recording of a conversation between a human soldier and a Zarian civilian during the reconstruction of Zarya Prime. "Why did you humans fight so hard?" the civilian asked. "You could have stayed on Earth, protected yourselves, and let the galaxy sort itself out." The human soldier thought for a moment, then smiled. "Because we've learned something over our history. When you see injustice and do nothing, you become part of the problem. When you see people suffering and you have the power to help, you have the responsibility to act. We could have hidden on Earth. We could have built walls and hoped the Dominion left us alone. But that's not who we are. We're humans. We're curious, stubborn, compassionate, and sometimes too brave for our own good. When we saw what the Dominion was doing, we decided to do something about it. Was it risky? Absolutely. Could we have lost? Definitely. But we won. And now look at what we're building together. That's worth fighting for." The recording ended with the Zarian civilian and human soldiers shaking hands, then walking together through a reconstructed city where children of a dozen species played in parks where battlefields had once been. Ambassador Maria Chun, now retired from active diplomacy but serving as an advisor to the cooperative, stood in that museum one day. A young Zarian student approached her. "Ambassador Chun, I am writing a report about the war. Can I ask you something?" "Of course," Chun replied. "Why did humans laugh when the Dominion threatened them?" "My teachers say it was psychological warfare, but I want to understand." Chun smiled. "We laughed for several reasons. First, yes, it was psychological warfare. We wanted to show we were not afraid. Second, we had been studying the Dominion for 40 years. We knew your empire. Admiral Kravik's speech was almost word for word what we expected. It was like watching a performance we had seen before. Third, and most importantly, we laughed because threatening to destroy humanity's home world is the fastest way to ensure humanity fights with everything it has. Throughout our history, the most dangerous humans have always been the ones defending their home. Threaten a human's family, their world, their freedom, and you do not get submission. You get stubborn, creative, terrifyingly determined resistance. So when Kravik made his threats, we laughed because we knew something he did not. We knew we were about to show the galaxy what humans do to bullies and tyrants." The student nodded. "And humans really did paint jokes on their warships during combat?" "We really did," Chin confirmed. "Because humor is a weapon tyrants cannot understand. Dictatorships demand fear and obedience. When you laugh at them, you rob them of their power. When you fight them with a smile, you show you are not afraid. That is terrifying to those who rule through fear." Years passed. The Galactic Cooperative grew. More species joined. Trade flourished. Scientific cooperation led to new discoveries. There were challenges, arguments, and setbacks. Democracy was messy, but it worked. And slowly, the galaxy healed from centuries of Dominion rule. The lesson humanity taught the galaxy was simple but profound. Freedom was worth fighting for, dignity mattered more than power, and sometimes the strongest thing you could do was laugh at those who threatened you, then show them why they should have taken you seriously from the start. The Dominion had ruled through fear for 3,000 years. It took humanity less than 3 years to tear it down. Not through overwhelming force alone, not through technology alone, but through preparation, determination, and unwavering conviction.